about Mercury retrogrades. Mercury retrogrades are a very tricky time in the year. There's usually about 3 in a year. For 2016, there's actually going to be 4. Lucky us. So what happens during Mercury retrograde is that Mercury starts to slow down from our perspective here on Earth. So what happens is we start to feel a lot of the effects, and it usually typically affects things that are ruled by Mercury. So time seems to slow down, our minds seem to slip a little bit more, our thoughts and communications get more intense as it slows down, so what is said in the communications make more of an impact. Responses may seem to take forever. It's just not moving as fast, so progress may seem to slow down to a crawl. It's harder than usual to achieve certain things, and when you do, it doesn't always work out. You may double or triple check your work, and you still end up finding mistakes later on. We just aren't feeling like we're on the ball when Mercury retrograde comes around. We feel more out of sync, we feel out of sorts, and we're just plainly not on the right wavelength. With a Mercury retrograde, mistakes are more likely to occur, and we end up having to do and redo tasks quite often. It's pretty classic for Mercury retrograde, especially when Mercury decides to slow down. So when it's slowing down to go retrograde or it's slowing down to go direct again, that's when we really feel the effects. But if you end up starting something new during a Mercury retrograde, you end up carrying that Mercury retrograde with that new task, that new activity, that new event, and it usually spells a lot of problems, unnecessary problems that you wouldn't normally have to deal with or expect when you start a new task when Mercury is direct. Our minds aren't working as efficiently as it normally would, and it can cause us to make more mistakes. These can be minor or major mistakes. So like I said, it's good to double, if not triple check anything that we go to do or our work before we hand it in or we post it or whatever. Or you might make a post and then you check it later, like I said, and you find mistakes that you swear weren't there when you checked it over. You might also find that you hear things that aren't true, or people just hear things wrong, or they don't take the instructions like they should. So they'll swear that you said something else, and you'll swear that you said this, and it'll be like like I said, you're on 2 different wavelengths, and it will be quite shocking sometimes when you notice it happening. Like I was saying, Mercury does rule travel, it rules communications, our intellect, mental activities, transportation. So some of these areas could experience most of the issues or a lot of the issues you might notice during a Mercury retrograde, or heading up to it that your car acts up, or buses are just late all the time, trains, so you might have wires crossed between friends or whatever. Problems just seem to pop up out of nowhere, and they are more prominent, and there's more of them. So emails might get lost in never land, never to be seen, never to be received. You might have phone calls or text messages that don't show up, calls just get dropped, computers seem to glitch more, or quit working altogether. The internet sites might crash. I've seen that in quite a few Mercury retrogrades. They just crash more, or they go down, or the computers crash, the servers crash. Instructions get confused or missed altogether. And then this can also lead to people getting lost in transportation issues because they heard one thing and you said another, and people don't make it to their destinations, or they end up being late. Like I said, problems with transportation, vehicles, GPS might quit working, important phone calls get missed. Mercury retrogrades are also known for causing multiple problems with the same issue, so you end up having to do and redo the same tasks up to 3, 4 times even, depending on how serious the issue is. And it's because Mercury ends up retracing the same area of the sky 3 times. So as Mercury hits those same areas again, you end up having to revisit those tasks that you visited when it went past that area the first time. Accident and sickness rates seem to rise during a Mercury retrograde. Projects and contracts started during a Mercury retrograde tend to go wrong. Random issues end up surfacing, or it could be fully plagued with problems. If you end up buying something online, for instance, there could be a delay in the shipment, it could get lost, you could end up spending the next few weeks just sorting it out and trying to either return the product, or you end up just sorting out the mistakes or getting the product that you were looking for. If you're planning on starting something completely new, that you are anticipating would be a big part of your life going forward in the future, or you hope to have it be a big part of your life going forward in the future, I would suggest waiting a couple weeks if you want it to actually stick around or you want to stick with it. Wait until we're thinking a little more clearly. You might decide to change your mind altogether and not do it. Or when you do it, you'll end up sticking with it, or the likelihood of sticking with it will be a lot more. And you'll be thinking a lot more clearly about it. If then, after the Mercury retrograde is over, if you still wish to make these changes in your life or to do this new thing, then go for it. With the Mercury retrograde, it's a terrible time for buying a car. As like I said, we're not thinking properly, and you're more likely to be unhappy with your purchase going down the road. This could be for various reasons, like you just end up missing important pieces of information, or important pieces of information are kept from you about the vehicle. And it just increases the likelihood of you end up getting a lemon or a money pit. So I definitely do not suggest that, because Mercury retrogrades rule contracts, and they also rule vehicles and transportation. So with it not working properly and it's going in reverse, you're unlikely to get what you're hoping for. And if it's a good deal or too good to be true, there's likely a really good reason for it, especially during this time. Mercury is playing tricks on us. So buying a house during a Mercury retrograde is highly, highly, highly not recommended. It just spells trouble. There's likely, like the same with issues like with the car, there's likely to be problems that end up manifesting for different reasons. This could be contractual issues, bank issues, problems with the house, with the closing, with a higher likelihood of becoming house poor, money issues popping up down the road that you weren't expecting or anticipating. Meeting someone new or starting a relationship is also it's not great. It's great for running into people that you knew in the past, and you're likely to run into somebody from the past, and that's great if you already know them. But if you're looking to start a new relationship or looking to meet somebody, I don't suggest doing it during a Mercury retrograde. It will just likely end up being a waste of time, and the relationship likely wouldn't end up lasting. So if you're looking to go on a first date, I would suggest maybe trying to hold off, chat online or whatever, and wait for Mercury retrograde to be over, and then go forward meeting new people, because you wouldn't want to waste your time on something that wouldn't end up lasting anyway. It also rules contractual issues, like I was saying, so it's not a great time to do anything legally binding or getting engaged. So getting engaged or getting married isn't recommended either, unless you like the idea of restricted communication, unstable marriages, divorce. I actually met an astrologer that went against this golden rule and thinking that they might be the exception to the rule, and their marriage didn't even last a year. So I really don't recommend it. If you're planning anything terribly important like buying or selling a house or if you're planning on doing any of these things, I highly recommend getting a private reading anyway, to avoid unnecessary pitfalls, problems down the road, as the stars can, as even bad stars can cause potential issues down the road. As Mercury retrograde, even good stars won't end up helping you the majority of the time. Mercury retrogrades aren't good for starting new things, but they are good for reviewing and revising and reworking things in your life that are not functioning properly. Basically, anything with a re is really good. It's good for catching up on things that you've been putting off, doing research, redoing things in general. It's best for thinking things through. It's not great for the action-oriented part. So it's good for considering things and thinking about things and reevaluating your life and prepping for when Mercury goes forward for making these changes and improving your life. Unless you like revisiting things over and over and over again. There's more info to come, so please remember to like AstroQueen Astrology on Facebook and subscribe on YouTube. Thank you.